So you may be asking yourself why it's taken me so long to upload yet another episode. Well, that's because I was working on a sweet new Stranger Things drum cover, which is out for all to see at youtube.com/WiseDrums, which also has videos of the podcast, so you can see our beautiful faces. Also, you can always keep up with the podcast if you follow me on Instagram at WiseDrums and Twitter at TheWiseDrums. And be sure to follow the Explicit Materia Facebook page as well. Today, Christian Hayden is my guest, a drummer and band leader of the Christian Hayden group. We talk about his love for jazz, Nashville's growing jazz scene, then we veer way off course into conspiracy theories. Yeah. That's what's in store for you today. Music and conspiracies. Welcome to Explicit Materia. Let's go. We're good to go. Solid. Christian Hayden is with us on the podcast, and I'm excited because I haven't seen you in a while.
I haven't seen you in a while either.
When's the last time? Well, it was you saw me at work, which we won't talk about because I don't like to confuse work on podcast.
Right,
I don't want people to know where I'm working.
Well, we just figured out a minute ago, though, that we met 4 years ago this month.
Yes, we did, on tour.
Which, I mean, I don't remember the exact dates of that, but it may even been down to like this specific week.
I think it was in September. I think it was late September, and then it was only like a 2-week tour.
Yeah, but there were two, weren't there? Right? I know there was one in October, and then there was one like immediately after, or there was a September thing, and then I'm almost positive we did something Red Bull related within a couple weeks.
Maybe
because I remember.
I can't remember.
There was kind of the like, okay, yeah, I'll see you in 2 weeks, and
maybe it was like 2 weeks on, week break, and then 2 weeks back on kind of thing.
No, you know what I'm thinking of? What I'm thinking of is there was the Red Bull thing, and then there was Life is Beautiful in Las Vegas, and they were it was like the same.
That's
3 weeks.
Yeah, man, we both played that. That was great. What a crazy year! What a great little run that was. I totally forgot about that.
I remember. Yeah, I remember that trip vividly because I lost my credit card the last night we were there in one of the casinos, and Chancellor Warhol's manager, we had to do this kind of like frantic last minute dash to the casino, then get to the airport on time. And yeah, I remember that we all flew out there. It was like 25 people taking up the back of that whatever flight it was.
I think we drove. You guys flew. I think we drove.
Did you drive?
Or did we drive?
I'm almost positive we all flew.
No, maybe we did. Maybe we did.
Yeah, because you didn't have any other shows.
That's right.
So yeah,
that's right. Yeah, we flew.
Because I remember everyone getting off the plane in Vegas and immediately going, because they've got all the crazy bars and stuff already in the airport.
Right, I remember now.
Yeah. Okay, so that would have been 4 years ago, I guess.
Yeah, that's crazy. What have you been doing lately as far as music is concerned? Any projects you jumped on?
I kind of have gone full bore into the jazz world.
Yeah, you told me that.
Leading my own group, so everything just kind of falls under the banner of the Christian Hayden group, whether it be a trio, a quartet, a quintet, or whatever. I grew up playing jazz. It was kind of my first genre love, if you will, as a young musician, and I just I found myself in my own sort of daily practicing and whatever behind the kit when I was just kind of playing and doing what I wanted to do. I was always gravitating towards playing jazz and learning jazz. And I kind of finally one day just sort of went, man, I want to play this stuff again. I got to find, I got to figure out how to do that. And that was probably about 2 years ago, maybe 18 months ago. And it's been great. I've had residencies all over town and multiple nights in a row, and have a kind of a stable of really phenomenal players that I just kind of mix and match depending on the gig or depending on the repertoire, whatever.
Is there a big, when people think Nashville, is there a big, like, a growing jazz movement coming?
There is absolutely a growing jazz movement that, in my kind of opinion, it's kind of one of those things where I I don't think much happened for about 10 years. And then in the past year and a half, it's just kind of, if you aren't aware of it necessarily, it's not necessarily something you're going to know about or stumble on. But somebody like me who's had a pulse on it and is playing with a lot of these people and going to the shows and just being a part of it, it's grown very fast. And the Jazz Nashville Facebook page, which a great drummer in town, Jeffrey Lean, started, there's like 1,200 people on that page.
It's great.
And now, and by other genre standards, you would think, well, that's not a whole lot. But if you think about the fact that there are 1,200 people, musicians and fans, and it's a very active page. It's not like somebody just added a bunch of people.
Yeah, jazz is one of those genres. If you love jazz, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You love jazz.
It's a real obsession. And I think there's a lot of reasons to it. I think first off, it's at the very most basic level, it's complicated music. It's tricky stuff to play. And it's a commitment. Like you can't really just
throw it on the earphones and play it.
You kind of have to be committed to it. Even people you meet who don't play the music at all or play music in any, they aren't musicians. They've never picked up an instrument, but they're crazy jazz fans, have a really amazing slant on the music. They really know what's going on. They can sit there and talk to you about stuff that musically is pretty advanced for a musician. And these are people who don't play music at all, they're like, oh yeah, well, I love this record because this guy, during this solo, and I love the blah, blah. And you're like, you just don't get that in other types of music.
Right.
And it's not that, obviously the point isn't, if you're into jazz, you're so much smarter than everyone. That's not the case at all. It's just that I think it requires a little bit more of you as a listener and a fan. So because of that, being a super nerd about the things you're into, it's like, there's kind of a level of commitment. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
You get to a certain threshold where you kind of realize it's all or nothing. You know what I mean? and I know, being nerdy and being, my girlfriend, always makes fun of me because she says the stuff you're not into, you just have no interest. You just don't. You're
shut down
on it. But the stuff you're into, man, no one could ever be more into it. You're psychotic about it, and so
that's cool, man. It's funny, like you come across people sometimes, and those people that just don't have a love for something. Those people are just kind of like they just kind of wade through life, and you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to my 9 to 5 and just come home and watch TV.
Yeah, at apathy. People that kind of That drives me nuts. I can't really keep people like that in my life because I don't really relate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm kind of crashed through the universe, kind of overly passionate about all kinds of stuff and abrasive and whatever, So people that are, I'm kind of, what do you mean? Yeah. Yeah's not an opinion. You can't do anything with yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You're right.
But yeah, so it's funny, but sometimes it happens like later on in life. Us as musicians early on in life, we're like, music, boom, that's what I want to do. Drums, for example, when I was a wee lad and my parents were touring, and I would see the greatest thing that hit my ears was the drummer and the beat, the rhythm. And they were playing, and the odds, like the odd thing about it is that my mom was singing pop songs. She would open up for my dad, who's an Elvis impersonator, if we all don't remember this. But
big Crown Royal fans too, I remember.
Yes.
Super
serious
in your family.
Well, my mom isn't. My mom's more of anything really. Wine, tequila. Tequila's her drink.
Sure.
Dad has, I think he has to break some sort of Guinness Book of World Records as far as how many Crown Royal bottles he has.
He's like, who's the guy that comes to mind is, original bass player, Michael Anthony Van Halen, right? The original bass player Van Halen is like such a crazy Jack Daniels fan that like they made him a Jack Daniels bass. And he did his bass solo on the Jack Daniels bass. It was really stupid. It was a stupid bass. It was a stupid solo. But, you know, amazing bass player, but whatever, stupid bass, stupid solo. But it kind of reminds me of that, right? Like you're just like in it, you're so into something, you become a brand ambassador for it in a weird way.
And it's not like when I explain he has like 38 Crown Royal bottles. Like, it sounds like he's an alcoholic. He's a functional alcoholic, but
sure.
But it's become a thing where friends for birthday that's his gift that people will just give him. Now it's become like a theme. It's like get Dennis a Crown Royal anything, including bottles.
It's part of the entity, the aura.
One person actually made a Crown Royal jacket for him. It was a complete, full-on Crown Royal jacket made out of those Crown Royal purple bags. And it's hilarious. I'll put a photo up. But
that's very cool.
Hilarious. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. What was odd about me falling in love with it is it's just pop music.
Yeah.
My mom did pop music and my dad did rock and roll, like Elvis music. And I fell in love with drums at a very early age. So as musicians, we fall in love with just immediately, and that's what we do. We're like, okay, boom, I'm going to be a rock star. I'm going to do something in music. I'm going to. This is my love. This is my passion.
It's this sort of immediate thing that you don't ever really stop to think or analyze or anything. I mean, I remember very vividly being a kid, and you know, my family was very indulgent. So it's not that there weren't rules, but it was kind of. I was not micromanaged at all in any way, shape, or form. And I was, you know, an only child for, you know, the first years of my life. So I was kind of just floating around this big house, able to sort of do my thing. And as a result, I discovered MTV. And I remember vividly discovering, I must have been like 7 maybe. Probably about 7. Because I remember actually seeing it break live when Kurt Cobain committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
On MTV News. I vividly remember like, oh, that sucks that guy did that. Remember like watching Kurt Loder, right? Like break that news. Kurt Loder, Tabitha Sword. You remember all this, like when MTV was this like really amazing thing, right?
Yeah.
MTV News was real news. And I remember watching Woodstock 94 live as it was happening. And just... You know, when there were all these, you know, when rock was the thing, right? And music videos were still these, you know, great artistic statements. Not that they aren't or can't be, but, you know, 20 years ago, it was a much different thing, or, you know, 25 years ago. And so, you know, but MTV was something my friends weren't allowed to watch. It was kind of considered a racy thing. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, I never really got into cartoons and any of these things other kids do. I was hooked on music and musicians and what it sounded like, what it looked like, what it just blew me away from this extremely young age. And I just remember, you know, guitar was my first instrument. And I was a terrible guitar player, and I still am a really bad guitar player. But I remember vividly, it was so disappointing because I just figured it's like, oh, I'm going to play guitar, which means, of course, I'm going to automatically get an electric guitar. Why on earth would I get this huge Spanish classical guitar that you can't plug into anything? That's not what the Red Hot Chili Peppers have. I mean, this is a real thing that I had in my head. I was like, this isn't what I was talking about, you know? And, you know, so I remember...
I can't rock face with this.
No one at Woodstock has one of these. What's going on here? And I remember standing in the living room trying to play this guitar, you know, if you can imagine me at like 8 years old with this huge Spanish classical guitar, and I'm, you know, kind of too small at that age anyway to really do anything with it. And on top of that, Dave Navarro is not playing a Spanish guitar. It's not working. This isn't happening,
Wait, did you get that as a Christmas present? Is that why?
No.
Is that how you landed upon this instrument?
No, this was like I had decided I was going to play guitar. And
so wait, you have nobody to blame but yourself for
no, it's
getting
100% my fault. I decided I was going to be a guitar player, and obviously it was a new career choice. Karate wasn't working out,
rocket science,
trying to get a black belt was becoming really time consuming, and it was gonna mess up my music career. So,
of course.
So I had to give karate up, and
plus Jean-Claude and Steven Seagal got it wrapped up. So that's tough
yeah,
competition.
It's hard to you're looking at those guys. You're 7 years old. You made it to your blue belt, but or how far are you really gonna go? And so. This is all 100% true. Like, I remember thinking of it like this, well, I've got to give up karate. I'm going to play guitar,
It's too much stress.
So, yeah, part of the and my family was always very much, when it came to playing drums later on, the greatest gift they ever gave me was insisting I take drum lessons, because I took them for many years, and I'm so thankful that I learned how to read and learned how to really play. At least from that aspect. But the guitar lessons were terrible and miserable. And what was, again, what was happening at Woodstock was not what was happening in my living room or at the lessons. And I couldn't reconcile those things. So guitar was out. And then, I guess about a year and a half later, oh, no, here's what I remember. I remember seeing a Gin Blossoms video for Hey Jealousy.
Damn, Gin Blossoms,
and
wow.
thinking, that guy's got a really cool bass. That's going to be easier to manage. 4 strings. So I wanted to play bass. But bass didn't happen. What arrived for Christmas was a drum pad and drumsticks. So that kind of, for me, it was just an obsession with music as a whole. I just wanted to be on the stage and be participating. It wasn't necessarily this immediate thing with the drums per se. I think it was more that the drums kind of had an immediate thing for me. Like, it just made sense the minute I picked up a pair of sticks.
Yeah.
I get this. I know how to do this.
Hit things with sticks. Got it.
Yeah. Archaic behavior. Check. Primitive, whatever. On it. So, it's weird, right? It's like, to this day I pick up a guitar and I can make my way around it and I love to play one. But it's just not my instrument. You know what I mean? There's just, where drums is purely this like channeling thing for me,
Yeah.
It's really a whole other level of kind of communication is going on, but
I find it very visceral as well, because I grew up listening to Metallica, and like,
I love
Metallica is my fucking band.
I just for the record, Death Magnetic. Are we allowed to swear?
Oh, fuck
because
yeah.
Death Magnetic is so fucking cool. I love Lars. I hated Lars forever.
I think every drummer reconciles the fact that he's terrible, but we still love him.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like I don't believe he's terrible at all. I believe that he's brilliant. Because
explain your case, sir.
Well, I would love to. So the thing with Lars, first off, right? Me being, this is going to sound arrogant, but I guess being very schooled behind the drums, lots of lessons and lots of stuff like that. It's easy to look at people like him and go, dude, you got it all wrong. But the thing is that I could never play like him. No one can play like him. It's kind of like Charlie Watts from the Rolling Stones, right? Mm-hmm. You just can't. You'll never get there because it's so unique and bizarre, and maybe I've spent too much time with a metronome. Like, I can't really play like that. Like, I'm on the whole other end of the spectrum. It's like I to a certain extent, the more schooled you are, the more the dirt and grit you take out of your playing sometimes.
Yeah, there's an argument for that, and it's like for schooling too. I remember when I first started getting into bands, and me and my buddies, we started a progressive rock band, and that's all we would listen to is progressive rock.
Absolutely. And what's your favorite Rush record?
Like, they got obsessed. The guitar players in the band got obsessed.
Windows, me too.
They got obsessed with learning every single chord and where everything goes, and theory, and what things don't work and what things do work, and getting so very technical with it. Which, if you look at it, progressive rock is the opposite of all that.
Right.
Progressive rock is progressive, things that haven't been done before.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if things are inside the key or kind of outside the key, something weird or different time changes.
Right. Sort of modulation that like really isn't great, but they do it anyway.
Right.
You know?
And the best Jimi Hendrix, like the people who are, or Kurt Cobain, people who did things outside the norm.
Right.
They didn't go to fucking jazz school. They didn't learn everything theory. They were just fucking brilliant, and they just did it.
Yeah, and I again, and that's kind of, not to, I guess, point anything out necessarily, but that's my great issue with jazz, is the fact that it has been relegated to academia, and it has become this thing that is part of universities and schools. You know what I mean? You don't have there isn't a program to learn how to be in a rock band. You just go do it. You learn it.
Yeah.
And I think that somewhere along the line, when jazz became, part of what I guess you would call it academia. I don't know. No,
you're on the right track.
And it to me, it lost a lot. When it got taken out of the street and became this thing that kind of, parents who were relatively affluent had kids who wanted to play music. So it was like, okay, jazz, and you're going to go do this. And you got these jazz camps and all these different things. And I did those things as a kid, but I don't think that helps the music necessarily. And there's definitely a lot of that goes on in this country. And I think it really harms jazz.
Well, I think it harms anything, really. If you think too much about something, you're going to end up making it stale. I feel like with movies, or I have friends who are in the movie industry, and they can't watch certain things because they know the ins and outs of every single thing that happens behind the scenes, and they know exactly how many people are setting up the lights, how many lights are necessary to make this one shot work, and that's what they're thinking about, and not the actual scene itself. Like what is being portrayed in the scene, that doesn't matter. The technical aspects are what overcrowd their minds.
I've got a buddy who's a film director, and he, long story short, one of his people he went to school with, had to get a job, right?
Of course.
Get a job. And the job that he was able to get in the film industry was porn, right?
Of course.
Making porn or editing porn, or I don't know what, something behind the scenes with porn.
He didn't star in the porn, did he?
No, he wasn't. He was a porn production or something. Whatever you call it.
Hey, that's hard work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there talking to my friend one night. He's like, "Yeah, it's really tragic," and he was being very serious about this. These like weird things you don't ever think people are going to say. He's like, "Yeah, it's just totally ruined porn for him." Like that should, not to go off track here, but that's something that should never be ruined for someone. That is not, you know what I mean? Like that's an indulgence that should not be taken from someone. And it's just kind of an amazing thing, and I'm cracking up. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, he's just, he's been behind the scenes for like 2 years on all this porn. It's just ruined it for him. That's so awful. I mean, can you imagine that there must be some sort of existential crisis there? You know what I mean? Like you're just kind of going through your Rolodex of things, and you're like, oh yeah, and porn's ruined for me.
Hey,
that's a thing I have to live with,
dude. I worked at Hustler for a hot second there. At Hustler, not the magazine, but like the store here right. In Nashville. I worked there for a second.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah.
What?
And, see, it does kind of I wouldn't say ruin porn, but it kind of like level. What's the word I'm looking for? It kind of just like whitewashes it all. You know, it's just kind of like, oh,
right.
porn. You know, instead of, oh, porn. You know, it's kind of, oh, porn. It's kind of like you
see the look on my
it.
face. It's like I'm just devastated that people have these experiences. You know,
I've circled back now.
You're okay. Okay, so you're
now
not.
I appreciate porn for what it is.
Guy, my buddy's friend, is like a lost cause. Like he'll never.
Well, I didn't work in it for years. I worked in it for a year and a half. So I was able to like dip my toe in it for a little bit and then go.
But there must be a lot of weird experiences just being in that store so much.
It was a weird situation because they treat those stores, they treat it like retail stores, and every time
here's the thing, like part of the porno experience is that you keep it to yourself. You know what I mean? Other than you relegate it to the, you know, whatever, the silly joke in the right company here and there, but beyond that, you know, like I would never go into a Hustler store.
Yeah,
I just wouldn't. I don't. You know,
it's weird, man. But it's funny. Like the shirts. I mean, I don't know. I haven't been in that store for years now. But like, because I was like 23 when I was working there. But the shirts that they wear, their like motto is "Relax. It's just sex." Which at some level, you're kind of like, yeah. Why is sex so forbidden? Why is it I'm so weirded out by if I tell someone, hey, this is what I really like?
Sure.
You know, why do I feel weird about that? Well, we really shouldn't, because we're fucking apes.
We're apes.
We're
right,
just
absolutely.
at the base level. We're all apes,
absolutely.
And we have sex and we like it. And like,
and
what's
Sasquatch
so weird
is
about
real.
it? And Sasquatch is real.
So real quick, tell me what that interview was like. Is it like any other interview, or is there a certain level of...
It was just like any other interview. He asked me if I worked in retail, and I didn't. And I was like, you know, it was just like any other interview. And I got the job from a friend who worked there. So I had a friend there who's like vouched for me. He's like, this guy's not crazy. He's not a pervert. He's not, you know, he's just a dude looking for a job. And by all accounts, that job was one of the best jobs I ever had, as far as like, we got benefits after 3 months. You got raises every year if you did good. Like it was really, really nice to be like, you have some sort of job security, but you look at it on the outside, like it's porn.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's not just Hustler stores aren't just porn though. It's cut into halves. So you walk in, the first part of the store is just retail, is just shirts, not toys, but like, you know, lube is on the corner over here, and then like things that you can just regularly see, like children can walk in the first part of the store. That's totally fine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
If I remember correctly, like you don't have to be carded. You have to be carded when you get into the second half of the store. Right. And then it's like you walk into the store,
that's
there's
where
a
shit
wall.
Gets real.
There's a wall guarded by an employee. And that employee is in charge of that section of the store, which is the porn, the toys, the penis and vaginas, you know, wieners, the stuff that children aren't allowed to see. And they have to, you know, the person has to card you if you walk in, you know, look at you, you know, you're 18, great, come on in, you know. Okay. And so it was relatively a normal job, but the whole aspect of just you're selling our base desires is so weird. And looking back at it now, like back then I just didn't care. My parents walked in that store one time, you know, they're like, this is amazing. And I was like, I know, right? This is fucking crazy.
And I don't know. I'm just too much of a goon. I don't think I'd be able to handle it, you know? I'm just
at first it's weird.
I'm just kind of I don't know.
It was weird because the first day I had to be shown.
I'm still like stuck in the locker room to a certain, like I just really.
Right. But it's so funny because you would think that, right? But then you walk into this environment with all the other employees that are just very like nonchalant about everything. You are kind of forced to be like, yeah, I'm nonchalant about this too. Yeah, and you kind of like put on this persona, but inside your head, you're like, holy fuck, there's penises and vaginas and dildos. Look at that giant dildo. Oh
Right.
my God. You know? And your eyes are wide in your head, but in reality, you're kind of like, yeah, this is no big deal. Whatever. I remember getting the tour of the toy wall, and man, did I get informed. There's this, she's now a good friend of ours, Miranda. If you're listening, Miranda, thank you for teaching me some things. She was in charge. She was head of the toy department, and she would teach me these things. Like, women have got it fucking made as far as toys. Like, man, I got so jealous just listening to the information that she was giving me about all these toys that do different things and have different settings, and just like the warming lube and all this stuff. And I'm like, we just have lotion in our hand. We're so
we don't get
gross.
we don't get anything, and no one is interested in giving us anything. and I didn't know about all of that stuff. I guess.
Yeah, sold a lot of rabbits.
Sure, I'm familiar with the rabbit.
Yeah,
that's kind of a mainstay, it seems.
Yeah, it was. Those things are $70.
Really?
$70.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was funny. It's so funny that like I'm talking about this. We don't have to talk about this for much longer, but if you want to, there's not a return policy on mostly everything in that store, especially toys. And man, wouldn't you know it? So many people come in and try to return toys after they bought it, and like a day after. Like it doesn't work. It's like, I'm sorry, we don't have a return policy on toys.
Right.
It's against the law. We cannot do that.
Yeah.
It's a hygiene issue as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't.
And so to circumvent that, because
I've never really even thought about that.
Yeah, you never think about that, right? So to circumvent that, we test the toys at the front desk when you're checking out. We have to test the toys. I give them the option. Would you like me to test the toys, put batteries in it, make sure it works before you leave the store? Because we don't take returns on toys.
This was a weird job to have. Okay? After listening to you for the past 5 minutes, have come to the conclusion that was a weird fucking job to have.
It really was.
And I'm just way too big of a fucking goofball to have ever professionally navigated any of that.
It was, yeah.
I would have been laughing my face off all the time, fucking around. I would have chased you through that store with the biggest penis I could find.
Oh, believe me, we did that. We did that in the back, though. We would like have sword fights with the giant dildos, and
How could you not? Like, why? Like, you just, it's the reptilian brain takes over, or whatever part
it did
of your dumbass mind that all that silly stuff is stored in.
It was a weird job. It was super weird. I still can't. I like think about that every now and then. I'm like, man, I fucking worked at Hustler. That's so weird. And it's still there. I drive past it every now and then and be like, I fucking worked there. It's really weird.
So did you get tired of it? Did you move to another job? Like what led to your tenure at Hustler?
Got fired.
What did you do something great? You fucked around, didn't you?
No. Nothing like that. I don't know if I should talk about this, actually.
Okay, don't worry. Don't tell me.
Well, no, I mean, it wasn't like a group of us decided we were going to have a group of us thought it was okay to drink.
Oh.
On the job.
Sure, yeah.
And I didn't participate. Just letting everyone know.
Sure.
But I was a part of the people that thought it was like, oh, okay, whatever. I didn't report it or anything, so a slew of us got fired for that. So, yeah. But, that was fine. Whatever. Like, I think at that point, I just kind of was like, that's probably a good thing.
Sure.
I need to move on from this anyway.
It wasn't like you put in your 2 weeks and they had like an employee goodbye party and they were like, Shane was the very best toy tester. And he'll be missed. And nobody can wield a dildo and with quite as much ease and expertise in a sword fight. You know,
yeah, it wasn't anything like that.
your legacy lives on. You know, we're forever changed by your presence here.
I mean, it was. What was my future there? You know, it was just like I can't. You know what's funny though is like that job actually saved my life, and I'll tell you why. I got about 2 months or a month after I got benefits from that job, like health benefits.
Yeah,
I had appendicitis, like severe appendicitis. Like on my birthday,
wow!
I had to go to the hospital because my stomach was killing me for like the whole week, and I finally went to the hospital. They gave me a CAT scan. Is that what it is? A CAT scan, MRI, whatever.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't really understand that. So appendicitis is really interesting to me because it will kill you if it's not handled.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much in the process of killing you right up until it's handled. Yet somehow people always survive appendicitis, and it's like a normal thing.
Well, they only survive it if they get surgery for it.
Right, but everyone does. Like you don't ever know
right.
someone who's like, he just didn't go in and now he's dead. I'm sure it happens, but it seems as if everybody, my understanding is that, and you can verify this, but the pain is so bad that there is, I mean, you're practically crawling to the hospital.
Oh yeah,
like
it was.
There's no like, I'll just take an Advil and kind of see if this goes away.
It's different for everybody though. I've had a couple friends of mine have appendicitis, and they tell stories, and it's different. For me, it was like my entire stomach was just in, like, it wasn't just one side. So it wasn't like I could like, that's my appendix. Oh, I should go into the hospital. No, it was like everywhere. We go back and forth, the pain. And so I thought it was just really intense gas for like a week. And I was like, this isn't right. Something is wrong. Went to the hospital. The doctor is like, yeah, your appendix is about to burst, so you need to go now. And so I went to surgery that day, and there you go. That's it. But you know when
and the appendix is correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a leftover organ from evolution, and there's no use for it. Correct?
My doctor told me we have no idea what it's for, but that is the main theory. The main theory is it used to be used for something when we were, you know, early humans. Sasquatch. Aliens. But it's just, we don't need it. Same with our tonsils. We don't need tonsils either. Same with a lot of, there's other bones. Yeah, there's specific bones in our bodies that we don't really use anymore.
Yeah. Or like even the tailbone. There's a lot of controversy about, you know,
why do we even need it?
Why do we have it? Because it doesn't serve any function.
Right.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It's not engaged with the spine in any crucial way.
Yeah, but if you break that fucker, you're gonna be in pain for. That's one of the worst ones to break.
I don't know if you've ever eaten shit and hit your tailbone, but yeah, I mean it's like it's unbelievable. But yeah, the appendix is.
So right, what kills you? Sorry to interrupt, but what kills you? Because you asked like what. How does it kill you?
Right.
What kills you is the bacteria. If it bursts, that bacteria it's in your stomach at this point, and that'll kill you pretty quick if you don't get that taken care of. The bacteria, like all the gross, just get into your system really quick and then just kill you.
Okay, so that's interesting because that what that makes me think of is that it's some sort of filtration system similar to a liver, but apparently it doesn't do anything like that, and because obviously you remove it and you don't like you get a transplant. It's like
right.
It's like, okay, we took that out and it doesn't mean anything.
Someone, I think it was my nurse. By the way, the drugs that they got me on was fucking awesome, and I had the coolest nurse when I was like after the surgery, and I'm in for the whole night for 24 hours.
Right.
And the nurse would come by every like 2 or 3 hours to give you that morphine, whatever, and it just goes right into your system. And it's like, heroin addicts totally get it. I totally 100% get why someone would be a heroin addict.
Right.
And it's just like fucking the feeling that you get when they put that needle into the thing and goes right into your bloodstream. You're just like, life. This is what life is supposed to be.
This is true happiness.
It really was.
Oh man, that's super scary. I had a friend who recently was, I forget what illness he got. He had something going on, not with his liver, something. Anyways, he ended up in the hospital for like 2 weeks, right? And they were trying to figure out what was going on and everything else. And he was in really serious pain. It wasn't appendicitis, but they put him on morphine drip, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And literally in his situation, he was on a certain amount of it just so he could function in the pain he was in. And then everything got cool and squared away and they let him go. But he was on this shit for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And, he gets home and a couple days later, all of a sudden he's
itching. Yeah.
Real irritable, feeling weird, not really knowing why. Everything's cool. This was a couple months ago, but he 100% became slightly addicted to that opiate.
Yeah.
Because he just was on a certain milligram level of it nonstop for 2 weeks.
Right.
And, that's
opiates are one of those things.
Super scary.
And you know what's crazy is not like, hopefully my doctors were really like, very like cognizant of that. And this was years ago. This is before like the whole like opioid epidemic of the last 10 years. Was it before that? I don't know. But he was like, when you take these painkillers, you got to wean off of them. He was just very cognizant. If you stop at cold turkey, you're going to go through withdrawal. And he told me that. And not from my experience with other people who have had issues with like an injury and then they take pills or whatever and then they just take it to how much they need and then they just stop cold turkey. They get really irritable. They start getting cold sweats, restless leg syndrome,
right?
That kind of stuff. And that's because you need to wean your body off of it, just like any other, basically anything else. Like
it's amazing the difference between what you have, right? What you can go get at your drugstore, right? You go down to Walgreens, right? They've got all kinds of shit. And there's the stuff you can just buy, and then there's the stuff you have to be 18 to buy, and then there's the actual behind-the-counter prescriptions. But when you're in the hospital, there's a whole other world of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it when somebody has like, a really severe infection or something. They've got stuff in there that they're just like,
done.
All right, that ought to be fine by 5.
Yeah.
Just this whole other. I
think that is the biggest scam. I think it's just like us having, just like profiting off of people's illness.
Yeah, that's a whole.
That's a whole other thing. But I look at that at the broad spectrum of it all, and I look at it from the outside, and I go, why is it that I have to pay $200 or something for just like 10 pills? Why is it that I have to pay that much when in other countries it's like, here, you need to survive to contribute to society.
Right. I have a buddy who this is amazing, just to kind of give you an idea of what they've got in these hospitals. So Novocaine is just a version of cocaine.
Right, yeah. A lidocaine and Novocaine, yeah.
Right. And a friend of mine many years ago annihilated his nose. He broke his nose and just really, really, really badly. And they needed to put it back into place, get it where it needed to be, and then, kind of splint it and everything else. But it was a pretty severe situation, and they needed to do it immediately. And they have something on hand specifically for things like that. And that is pure pharmaceutical grade cocaine.
That's right.
And they straight up packed each one of his nostrils, I mean, just to the tip with coke. And then they went. That's a real story. That really happened, you know?
Dang.
And, you know, he was definitely old enough to know exactly what was going on. It wasn't like he was, 12 years old, like, what's this stuff? I mean, he's like, oh my God, this is incredible. And, but they got all kinds of stuff like that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, they got.
Well, that's all morphine is. Morphine is just heroin. It's the same fucking plant.
It's
plant, right? Heroin? Isn't heroin plant?
Opium poppies.
Yeah, opium poppies. It all comes from poppy.
Ooh, yeah. Speaking of which, have you seen? I can't remember where it's singular or plural. Ozark or
Ozarks. Yeah, I've heard, all my friends were like, "Dude, you got to watch that show."
Ozark is really cool. I never did the Breaking Bad thing.
Man, you and my buddy Isaiah, also a drummer too. What is with you guys not watching Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones?
I don't know. There's things you just don't get in. I'm not a TV movie guy.
I get that.
So anything that I get into it's really sort of by just, being in the room when my girlfriend's watching it or something. You know what I mean? And but this is I have certain friends who are like, well, it's a poor man's Breaking Bad, or it's almost as cool. I don't know enough about Breaking Bad, but I definitely think that this is particularly interesting. And one of the things that's so fascinating about it is that growing opium poppies is a big component of what's happening in the show. So, but you should watch it. And it also it takes place in a really weird. I mean, the Ozarks are a really weird part of this country. If you've ever, gone through that way, it's pretty bizarre.
Okay. All right. No, we will definitely watch it. It's definitely on the list. We're rewatching Game of Thrones and rewatching Stranger Things because Stranger Things is coming out in a week. And I'm excited.
Yeah. So I watched that. I thought that was really cool. Game of Thrones, I missed the boat on. My girlfriend's super into it, and what I'm told that we're going to watch through everything again in preparation for the next season when that comes out.
That's the last season. Yeah.
So, we'll see.
You'll binge through it quite quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cultural phenomena.
I mean, you have to watch it.
It's really a major thing. I mean, it's so popular. People reference the characters when it comes to how real people are behaving in everyday life. It's like, oh, it was so blah blah blah. It's like, what,
so Joffrey of you.
Yeah, what does that even mean? But yeah, dude, yeah, there's so much weird stuff. But Lord of the Rings was my thing.
Yeah.
Then
you'd love Game of Thrones.
I know, but I feel like they're really different.
Well, they are. And the only Lord of the Rings is obviously a little bit more fantasy, takes a lot more liberties. And Game of Thrones is if you mixed like real life medieval scenarios with Lord of the Rings dragons, magic. But magic isn't a part of the show really until like pretty much the last couple seasons. We're kind of like, okay, magic's coming, dragons are here. All right. No spoilers, but, it's been fucking 5 years. But I'm not spoiling the major bits of
Yeah,
Game of
Thrones.
Thrones.
I've seen bits and pieces of episodes here and there.
But what's intriguing about Game of Thrones, I'm sure people have told you a million times over, it's like a lot of his stories are based on real life events during the medieval times and Roman times and like things that have really happened that are like really fucked up and like, holy shit, really? Are we really this monstrous to each other? This is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the great tragedies I feel like of getting older is just the realization of how nasty we are to each other. And
how nasty we can be,
Yeah, I mean,
but if you look at, it's funny. I've said this in this last podcast. We talked about me and Kyle and Isaiah. We talked about the Las Vegas shooter, and we talked about.
I have lots of opinions on this.
I've heard you do. You told me. Well, we can get into that. We'll get into it right now. How about that? But I mentioned, there was a lot of, when stuff like that happens, there's a lot of negativity that's boasted, and there's a lot of, it's just a lot of, like, it's really easy to fall into this trap of, like, the world is falling apart.
Sure,
We are just, this is it. This is the end of civilization as we know it. How can we do this to each other? And I just, it's easy to do that.
Of course.
But but you have to, in those times, remind yourself that 10 times more people in that moment risk their lives to save other people. Covered women, got people out of harm's way. It's like, get down,
Sure,
like ambulance, police, like all these people that jumped in to defend society. And like, hey, no, this is not cool at all.
Right.
We have to make those people completely outweigh the one crazy fucking asshole,
Well, assuming you believe that it was one crazy ass.
Oh, what conspiracy theory do you have for me? What conspiracy theory do you have for me? Because I'm from Vegas, right? So
I was thinking about that on the way over here. I know you are from Las Vegas, which
I'm not going to be offended. I mean, whatever. Just
no, I think that there. Regardless of whether you take the course of believing in any sort of conspiracy theory, we can at least agree that everything about this investigation has been a little weird and a little off and a little like...
I think what makes it odd is the fact that we can't find a motive and we can't find any sort of basis on... go on. Actually, let me let you go on first. And
okay.
What makes the investigation weird?
I'm gonna try and ease into this because I probably have theories and opinions that a lot of people would view as being pretty out there.
Okay.
I think that I'm trying to figure out the kind of best angle to kind of dive into this. It just seems very bizarre to me that one person was able to pull that off. There's a lot of things about weaponry and guns that, I mean, you're talking about if there is a Stephen Paddock, right? If there is one, you're talking about a guy that pulled off a shooting of a caliber that is like Black Ops.
Yeah, and it is very, like, the level of sophistication that was necessary to pull off something like this it's really incredibly I want to say intelligent, even though, like, that's, I don't want to say that, like, if a crazy murderer is intelligent, but at the outset of it, like, he took months and months to plan this thing.
So here's the other thing. And YouTube is very interesting because there's a lot of things.
You got lost into the YouTube realm.
Well, there's a lot of things that are pop up and then disappear and stuff like that. And I just was watching this last night and I thought this was really interesting because it was, not a hearsay situation. There's a for whatever reason, the FBI and the CIA aren't releasing any ballistics information on what's up. So this guy who is he runs like he's like a ballistics person or whatever business that would be. Mm-hmm. So he just of his own accord he did what he does, and he breaks it all down over about 25 minutes. And according to his ballistics, there's two shooters. there's a Mandalay Bay, and then there's another shooter that is much closer, based on, I guess the way that they do the ballistics is they let's like get the sound waves, and then there's like there's various math equations, and they basically figure it's basically how a bullet travels at twice the speed of sound. So it's basically an audio thing. And he determined that there was indeed somebody absolutely shooting from Mandalay, but then there was somebody else that was considerably closer.
But he's just basing that off of sound waves, correct?
Well, he's a ballistics expert. So there's I'm not a mathematics guy, and it's a complicated video because there's all these diagrams and stuff, but he's basically explains it in a very believable way. And that had always, since the onset, I without a doubt think there were multiple shooters. Because it's just too...
Okay, I'll give you this. I'll give you this. If this happened in any other city other than Las Vegas, I would maybe give that to you. But we're talking about Las Vegas here. Do you know how many cameras? There are more cameras in a casino than an airport. There are more especially and on the ground. Everybody has a phone.
You're right.
It's like when you think about it, like how much level of stealth, like these people, like these are people. If there are in fact two shooters, how is it that if there is a grand conspiracy, what's the motive of?
So there's a couple of things in my immediate thought process, and the first thing that made me go, how on earth? You can answer some of these questions because you're from Las Vegas, so I'm sure you have experience with casinos that a lot of people around here wouldn't. And my first question is, how do you even get to the point where you're able to start firing after you bust two holes in windows like that? They're censored, aren't they? You can tell me this.
I don't know if they're censored or not, but I do know that...
how is that not just like immediately you got security on that floor, knocking down the door going, what the fuck is going on here?
That's a good question, because usually casinos are usually pretty tight security. They're like, as far as the cameras are concerned, the reason why they're there is to catch gambling sharks or to catch card sharks and people who are really good at gambling or cheaters.
I was also told that they're people for liability purposes. Those windows they're censored. So if there is a certain amount of pressure that is on them, it automatically alerts security because they don't want anyone like breaking a window and committing suicide.
Well, they might not be censored, or if they are censored...
I'm just asking purely...
what happens in a hotel room? Let's just get to the baseline of things. How many people have fucked, like, on the window seal? And, like,
sure, of course.
Bump. How many times does that sensor go off and the security guard goes up and he's like, is anything going on up here? Like, yeah, we're on our honeymoon. Like, oh, okay, bye.
Right, yeah.
Like the hotel room is your home away from home. That is your private area. There are no cameras in there. There's no, and they're like, there's just, that's probably one reason why he did it through a hotel room, because that's the only place that he could get away with doing something like that. And in a city like Las Vegas is that hotel room. That's it. So and as far as like busting out the windows, those windows must not have been that strong. I do know that they've, like, in recent years, in the recent 20, 30 years, they've had to replace the windows because a lot of people were committing suicide because of gambling and, people lose all their money and they're like, throw themselves off the window. So they made the windows not be able to open.
Right.
So, I don't know. That's a very interesting point, but it is entirely plausible that if he got a heavy enough sledgehammer, if those windows aren't really that strong, boom, boom, and then go to town. because all he would have to do, that would be the last piece of the puzzle. Think about it. You're thinking of it as like he busted the windows first, then placed the guns, and then went to town. What if he got the guns placed first, and then the last piece of the puzzle was make all the sound in the world?
I see what you're saying. I just...
And plus, we have to remember, too, the investigation is still ongoing.
I think that there is... So, in my opinion, there's kind of like 4 or 5 options of what may have happened and what's going on. The 5th being probably being really crazy, which is a whole other discussion. Mm-hmm. And the first being, I think, is entirely plausible. That it would explain a lot of different things, and I do think it's relatively easy to swallow without losing faith in humanity. The thought process is that Stephen Paddock, because in this theory would account for a lot of different things. So we have these really weird videos of his brother.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Very strange interviews. A lot of weird...
Well, he's probably... Well, if you think about it, like he just lost his brother. He had no idea his brother was crazy. Like, he's obviously in a state of some sort of grief.
Sure, of course. So, if we...
But, okay.
If,
all right.
Right now, we let's just say we agree and we believe that Eric and Stephen Paddock are real people and they're brothers. Okay? If we agree, then it stands to reason that if his brother, because the big thing is the brother had no idea about anything, right?
Right.
No idea. And miraculously, there isn't any kind of other family that's able to be dealt with, right? Mm-hmm. No other Paddock or relative has been interviewed or come forth to discuss anything. And that's fine. A lot of people have small families. I have a small family. But there is one theory that is pretty interesting.
Okay.
And that is that if you notice, someone took credit for what happened immediately, but it got pushed to the side real quick.
Was it ISIS?
Right.
Okay.
So here's a running theory that seems plausible to me because it kind of explains everything.
Okay.
It explains things from why there's a Stephen Paddock, why there's the investigation is very hush-hush, why the narrative is sort of changing, and that is that Paddock was working for the FBI and there was some dealing with ISIS and shit went wrong, and ISIS decided to use it as basically do what in that event you would call a terrorist attack. It would explain why Paddock was killed. It would explain why his brother seemingly has no clue about anything. And it would explain why the FBI and everyone has been really kind of quick to sort of keep things like this. Because there's a theory that Paddock was a super high-level drug runner who was involved with the FBI and ISIS on some level. And shit went wrong. And what was happening was this gun deal in this hotel room. And someone found out who he was and killed him on the spot and then used it as an opportunity to do this whole thing.
Interesting theory.
And the reason that it's so hush-hush, if you believe this theory, is that if the FBI doesn't get the right narrative out until this sort of dies down, right? Because it's pop culture, man. I mean, something's going to happen in 6 weeks, and we're going to all be onto that. Mm-hmm. But it really, really gets the FBI caught with their pants down, and that's not going to happen. And that would also that theory explains all of it.
Well,
to me,
I would agree with you as being an interesting theory. But
and I'm not. And again,
it's just a theory that's out there.
It's just it's a theory that like because there's all kinds of other things that get really nutty. And the fact of the matter is you can move anything any direction if you think hard enough and you know enough. You know, you can. But I think that I 100% just don't believe that was a random crazy dude that did that. I just don't.
Yeah, what makes this so rife for conspiracy theories is the fact that there is no motive. Now, here's my thing to the theories that are going on as far as it being a conspiracy, like the government covering it up, the FBI is covering up it or whatever. The mainline theory that they're presenting is that he was a closet crazy person and he was just waiting for his right moment, which... If you were, let's say you're trying to build this conspiracy, like all this happened, like he works for the FBI and he fucking just, this went down. Why wouldn't you just say, oh, it was ISIS? And then what that would do is solidify your argument against, Islamic terrorism, and because that's what Trump and that's what the current administration is trying to promote, right? Like, it's the Muslim religion that's bad, and like
so that's
that if you were to make that conspiracy, why wouldn't you use that to your favor instead of wouldn't that make more sense as opposed to the theory that they're presenting?
But there's one really crucial part of that, and that is that our country has a history of this is what the FBI and the CIA does. We fund a war over here, and then we supply people over here, and so it's almost as if our whole point is. I mean, that's what the Contras, right, and the Sandinistas, and that's we have a whole. I mean, that was the whole thing with Osama bin Laden, right? All right, we're going to give this guy all these weapons to fight the Soviets because we're in the Cold War, and okay, now we're good with Russia, and now. They've got it's something that our country has always done. Fund the enemy while fighting the enemy on another front, because it's a tactic for controlling the situation. What better way to control a war than to fight it and pay for it?
Right.
And that is what makes sense to me. And the other thing too is if you have somebody like Stephen Paddock who's involved in that also probably it makes it more probable that all the guns and all that it's just too there's a certain point where things get so random that it's like, how could this be random?
Well, that's my point. My point being is like, if you were to make a conspiracy out of this, why go for we don't know what happened? Because it'd be easier just to go, oh, he was a part of ISIS. It was ISIS' fault. And then everyone would be, oh, well, okay. Duh. Like, of course he would go crazy and murder all the infidels because he's a part of ISIS. Why go through the whole process of being like, it was random and we don't know why, and it's just extending the confusion further. It just wouldn't make sense.
That I don't know, and the thing is, it's like it's not that I'm claiming to know much of anything necessarily. I just think that it's a very something about the whole thing on a very gut level is really, really bizarre.
It is.
And it's not, it's like, okay, we have a problem with guns in this nation.
Mm-hmm.
We do. We have a lot of guns and a lot of people. I mean, I'm one of those weird people where it's like I support the Second Amendment, but I am always a little wary when I notice somebody with a gun on their side.
You should.
I sit really in the middle.
The same thing would be if you walked into a bar and some dude came wearing that big ass sword. You'd be like, that guy's a fucking huge sword.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but feel that if you're choosing to carry a gun, on a very obvious level, you want to use that gun.
Well,
and I gotta. I'll tell you.
I see that. Yeah.
I'll tell you a great story quickly, and then I'll tie it back into the Vegas thing. I got a friend, very close friend of mine, loves guns, big gun guy, very cool dude. Very normal guy, and he carries his pistol on him always, first to have it. And he was talking to me the other day, and he was like, "Oh man, you won't believe what happened the other day." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Well, a good friend of mine, who's also a friend of our other friend, thought his roommate was breaking into the apartment the other night and shot him 7 times." He's like, "But it's all good. He's already out of the hospital." And I was like, "Wait a minute. Your friend, obviously armed, thought his roommate was breaking in, fired 11 shots." Now think about that. Like
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
It's like, whoa, hey, you know what I mean? 7 of which hit the guy, and him and his other buddies are cracking jokes about how he must have been a bad shot if his roommate's already out of the hospital. And this
is kind of a funny joke, but yeah, I can see where it's kind of crazy.
Whoa, there's a lot of things wrong with that thought process.
You're right,
and there's a lot of things. And keep in mind, I support the Second Amendment, but you can't tell me that the person in that situation couldn't wait for a reason to fucking fire off that gun.
Well, that's see, it's like situations like that are so weird because, and it's my argument for people who pose the argument of having a gun to protect themselves. So I understand the need to protect yourself, but are you really equipped to really protect yourself? Do you put yourself in an environment where you're able to think quickly and know where the target is in that high stress situation? In any other situation, going to target practice and playing around and jumping through obstacle courses, yay, this is fun. That doesn't activate the fight or flight situation in your brain. What activates the fight or flight situation is if you think that you're going to die if you don't do anything.
Right.
And that takes, Marines take years to get that.
So that being said, where is the disconnect with, right, if we're talking about the fight or flight?
Yeah.
How do you get to that point with your roommate? Like, how do you?
But I didn't.
How do you? I mean, let's just think about this. It's like, I mean, okay, so we're at your house right now, right?
Yeah.
Now, say instead of texting you and notifying you that I was here, I just checked to see if the door was open, and it was. But you're an aggro gun dude, and even though you knew that someone was coming over, and that person, hell, could have been your wife for some reason coming home.
Yeah.
But man, you got that pistol on your side, and before you can even figure out what's going on, you've already just blasted me up because, hey, I might have been an intruder.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, there's no excuse for that type of thing.
I agree. And just you have a great point, and that situation happens a lot.
I mean, are you really so... And the other thing, too, I mean, here's what it says about you as a person. It's like, are you really so scared that you're that ready to unload a fucking gun into somebody all the time? Like, think about that. You're the dude that shot your roommate for no reason 7 times. You're that guy.
Yeah. He's a statistic now.
And I think this is the really massive problem with gun culture, is that this is what seems to constantly happen. You've got fucking NRA conventions, I can't remember, it was like last year.
Yeah.
Where like multiple people shot other people demonstrating guns. That happened. Think about that.
Yeah.
You know? But it's so logical, right? I mean, I don't know. if you really want to think about the most logical place you might get shot, it might be at the gun convention. I mean, it's like if you're afraid of dropping a weight on your foot, the gym is probably your odds are going to go up if you're in a gym. Right?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's weird, and I'm not a part of that culture just for that particular reason. But it's just it's such a weird thing, and people they hold it so close to their chest, and they keep it to their because. And another thing too is they're worried about the government, and I think a lot of this, even let's go back to the conspiracy thing, because this is my general view on conspiracies and society and why we just gravitate towards theories that make sense as opposed to the random acts of violence that some people we want to find. And I feel like that's a symptom. Like even flat Earth.
Just real quick for the record. The Vegas thing, like I'm not looking at everything else and thinking it's conspiracy theory. You know what I mean?
Right.
I truly believe that we have people who commit crazy shootings in this country and they act alone, and 100%. My fascination with the Vegas thing is it's the one where I'm going, biggest mass shooting in history, lot of weird stuff. You know what I mean? And that's all it is. I'm not one of these people that sits here and it's like every single thing is a conspiracy. And, we're all going to end up in Phoenix.
I'm not saying that you are. I'm just saying, since we're on the subject of conspiracies and people make YouTube videos and people like they jump on these theories, and I think what it is on the whole is I think we have a society today with the age of information, and we're living to live with the age of information with our phones and constantly being bombarded with all sorts of crazy information, and it's tough to see what is true anymore because we're just like so bombarded with everything. But I think it's a symptom of a society that's tired of being lied to, and I think because at all points the government, your state sponsor, everybody is lying to you. They have this face of like, we're taking care of it, but they're not really taking care of it because they're serving their own goals, and people are just sick of it. So they're starting from the ground up. Okay, I walk out the door. Is the Earth flat? Because I've been told the Earth is round. How do I know the Earth is round? Just with seeing with my eyes. So a person who is tired and sick and tired of being lied to and has known that,
you sort of revert back to this.
Back
you're in a way you're going to reboot your own hard drive of what you know.
Right. And I think that's what's happening. I think people are making the work in order to like really dig deep and find out, okay, I'm just giving Flat Earth an example. There's a particular level of science needed to understand why the Earth is really round. Just by looking outside and just looking at your surroundings and go, oh yeah, the Earth is round because of that, or the Earth is round because of this physics, and I think a lot of people get to a certain level and they're like, okay, now the real work has to begin. The real mathematics, the real understanding of physics have to go to really truly understand why the Earth is round. Course, yeah. And people don't want to do that. People don't want to go take a class, a physics class, because that's a lot of fucking work and commitment.
I certainly don't. You know? I mean, I think that listen, there are a lot of weird things about the world and the universe. Believe me, I believe that. But I also am 100% about science, and on a real basic level, just logic and rationale, I mean, and the other thing is, I think people get caught up. It's like, well, what a weird thing to just be all about. Like, guess what, babe? Earth is flat. It's like, what the fuck did you come up with that? Like, what a weird thing to just, I'm going to put that pin in my hat. Earth is flat. Why? Because you believe it's round. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, why would you... That's the thing, too, right? It's like, does it even change anything?
It really doesn't. Because there's no motive for the government or whoever is covering up the Earth is round, the Earth is flat. There's no motive behind. Why wouldn't they tell you that the Earth is flat? Guess what? The Earth is fucking flat, y'all. Like, just don't go past the Antarctic, otherwise you'll fall off.
Yeah, most of you will never get there, but if you happen to, make sure you're sober and, your eyes are open.
So my point being is that we're seeing this as a symptom of constant bombardment of information and then the fake news, like all these things that we're just trying to, everything's like reverting back. We're reverting back to, what do I know at a base level? Okay, I walk outside. I breathe oxygen. Why do I breathe oxygen? Do I really need oxygen to survive? Turns out, actually, most of the air is actually CO2. Is it CO2? It's actually carbon. Carbon, not oxygen, that we breathe in most. So that's crazy. I didn't know that until like a month ago. I was like, fuck, really?
I didn't know that until just now.
Yeah, it's mostly carbon and not oxygen, as we once thought and taught in schools.
I think a lot of the thing, too, man, is, and I'm certainly guilty of this, I drive my girlfriend nuts with it, is that I probably spend a lot of my time thinking way too hard, And the truth is that, you're going to hurt yourself if you think too hard about certain things, I mean, it's just, you can't go grocery shopping and try and figure out what fucking apples are ripe enough while you're worried about whether the earth is flat, like you got to give up something to get something sometimes, so I was. You'll appreciate this. This is so good. Maybe I'm slightly autistic or something, because stuff like this just unnerves me to no end. Went to my first Titans game the other day.
Oh,
which
that's
is
an event.
Terrifying. Fuck, was that scary? Not the Titans.
They were actually Titans.
Just the whole thing, the whole process. And I'm sitting there, right, and I get very unnerved by the whole like fan animosity with each other.
Yeah, like you worship a different team. Fuck you.
Yeah, it's just like really weird. I don't really understand it. So I'm sitting there and I'm just kind of. It's like I'm trying to get really intoxicated, but I'm having a hard time because I'm just sort of like
not relaxed at all.
It's like you've got this. Fuck, let me set this up. Let me set this scene up. And I say this, I don't mean to offend any sports teams or Titans fans or the NFL or anything like that. Or I just, this is my own issue. I'm the one that needs help, not everybody else. So I'm sitting there, right, and I'm like, we're Seahawks fans by default. I'm a Seahawks fan. Sports are intense. If you don't have any affiliation, people around you will assign you an affiliation. Yeah, you can't. There's no neutrality. Like, you can't just be like, I'm just here for the game, man. It's like, no, you're not. No fucking way are you here just for the game.
So true.
So my girlfriend is from Seattle. Her friend is in town. Her friend's in town. Bought tickets, right? Seahawks, Titans. Cool. You know what I mean? The Seahawks are a whole other weird thing because, like, that's not a real bird. Right? That's the beginning of my irritation. It's like, that's not a real fucking bird. Like, what are you talking about? That's not real. You're named after something that doesn't exist. Fuck.
And the Titans do?
Wait till I get to this. This is going to blow your fucking mind.
Okay.
So, of course, we're Seahawks fans. Fine. I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. Turns out it was a huge problem. So, you've got these people that are, just talking shit to each other. And it's like, are you acting? Is it for the sake of the game? Are you really mad? Like, is like violence going to erupt? Because the level of intoxication in this stadium is through the fucking roof. I'm drunk, but the guy behind me is like, whoa, man, And so, of course, my girlfriend's friend and she didn't mention that she was a big shit talker, Seahawks fan, and when she has a couple beers and gets into the stadium, all bets are off, right? So these people are going back and forth at each other, and in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to hit my girlfriend's best friend. I'm going to have to get involved. And it's just like grown men, like beating their chests and grunting and weird things are happening on the field, like raffles and prizes, and the mascots don't fucking make any sense. And then it happens. And then it happens again. And then it happens for the entire fucking game. The people in the NFL and who manage the Titans don't understand that Titans are much different from Spartans, which means to constantly show footage from 300 is so fucking inaccurate. It's insane. Spartans are real mortal men that existed. Titans are demigods. They exist between man and the gods, like Zeus and whatnot.
I thought the Titans were the gods that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the Titans were the gods that the current gods Zeus and Ares and all those people rebelled against, and it was a war between the Titans and the gods.
That might be true, but Titans are gods.
Right, not demigod. I thought because isn't demigod like Hercules? Hercules is a demigod.
Yeah, you're right. Demigods where they're they had like a mortal mother, and then
right.
Zeus was the father, that type of thing. Either way,
okay,
they're not fucking Spartans. And I've got this chick screaming at this guy behind me, and a guy in front of me beating his chest, and then there's like a fucking mouse like doling out prizes on the field, and then the Spartans come running across the screen, and everyone's yelling. It's like a combination of "Go home, sea chickens," and "Go Spartans," and you're like, or "Go Titans," and you're like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. I'm gonna have a panic attack. None of this lines up. Now, the other conclusion I have that I came to, and then I'm done with this rant. To play a game, you have to have two teams to play the game. Therefore, if you're about to play a game and the other team doesn't show up to play the game, it kind of delineates the purpose of the game. So instead of being so mad and hating the Seahawks, wouldn't you be overjoyed that the Seahawks showed up to play the Titans, therefore giving you your sacred football game? Like, right? Do you see what I'm saying here?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because the whole
you don't have football unless you have two teams.
Well, it taps into, again, our base ape lizard brain, where we had tribes, and that's how we survived. Tribe versus tribe. If there's another tribe over there, you were wary of that tribe. Eventually, we learned to get along. We understood that, hey, if we all get along, we actually evolve faster, and we actually can get through life pretty good, so let's team up here. But before that, we still, for a long time, apparently, because we still have these teams, it's like Democrat and Republican. If you're a Democrat, you're hardcore Democrat. If you're Republican, you're hardcore Republican. We have these... We need to be on the same team. We have like people on the same team. That is your team. That is your go-to. Don't fuck with my team. I'll fuck with you.
Right.
It's a base level thing, and that's what football taps into. Any sport, really.
Yeah, I understand it. It's just like the level of aggro was so gnarly.
But what you see is base level.
Yeah, absolutely. Fucking Neanderthals, which, by the way, 11% of the population has Neanderthal blood in them. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
That's a real fact. Pretty cool, right?
It makes sense because we do things that are like, why? That doesn't make any logical sense.
Right. So, they figured out very recently that Neanderthal was not an evolution into Cro-Magnon, which is human beings. They were separate species that lived together on Earth at the same time, but also interbred. Pretty cool. Anyways.
Hey.
So, yeah, I just thought it was weird. It's like, shouldn't we be super happy that the Seahawks showed up? Like, what if they didn't? Like, there wouldn't be a game today.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I I don't know. It's
so funny. I come from a football family.
Okay,
and so and
I don't.
But see, yeah, but
And I'm
so
a weirdo.
funny.
See, these things, like, this is what I'm thinking about while watching this go down. This is what is happening in my head.
It's a weird thing that triggers inside a person who lived with like a football family. That's your team.
Sure.
That is your team. You live and die for your team, kind of thing.
Right.
And it's so funny because I don't really watch football anymore. Back when I was a kid, I'm a huge Giants fan.
Okay.
I was an even bigger Giants fan when I was like really into football, and I watched it every Sunday with my family. And my mom's a Packers fan. God, is she a cheesehead? And my dad's a Kansas City Chiefs fan. And so we would that was a ritual. Every Sunday, sit down, watch football. That's what we did.
Sure.
And it's so funny when like I catch a game, it's on. I'm just like sit down and watch it. But like it takes like maybe a minute, and I'm in the game, and I'm like, now I've picked a team, and now I want this team to win, or I'm like super excited that the game is playing, and then my wife will look at me like, "You really like football?" And like she's like so crazy, like I act so different when I'm watching a game,
right?
As opposed to I'm just like everyday life. I'm kind of like, hey, yeah, whatever, cool. But when it comes to football, if I want my Giants to win, I want my fucking Giants to win, and I'll get really sad or depressed if they lose, and I get like as if someone took something from me.
Yeah, I didn't grow up in any sort of sports culture, right? So these innate sort of things, like I don't have it. I don't know what it is. I understand it, but it just, I mean, of course I get it. It's just like, that's where my head is going in the middle of this game. I mean, it's like actually what I'm like, God, this is like really weird. I mean, I don't know. Like, what if they just keep going back to that? It's like they Spartans, you're mad at the team that you need to have to play the game, and that's what gives us football. And I don't know what's going. I just. Yeah,
it's a weird thing.
Is that weird? Or
it's totally natural. If a person isn't around that kind of environment, it'd be mostly foreign to somebody who's not genuinely who doesn't genuinely understand that particular environment. It's like kind of like, why is everyone so mad? This is great. This is a great time. Why is everyone so mad? Because it's the whole team ape thing that we're doing.
Having a hard time understanding too, what is real and what is kind of acting, and because there's a certain level of role playing that goes on in that type of thing. Well, yeah, and also that type of person that gets that aggro, they probably aren't like that in any other moment in their life. That is just the moment that they have. That's their time to just unleash their manliness or their rage or anything else that they can't do if they're at their fucking 9-to-5 desk job. They can't just be like, tip, 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 tip. They can't do that. So, they wait for that Sunday and they fucking release all hell and yell into the world, I am human. The fucking Titans must win. Right. The Titans must win. There go the Spartans again.
There goes the Spartans. I never really noticed that. I figured
it's so amazing, and it's the thing is that the level of production that goes. I mean, football is insane. I mean, it is
multi-billion-dollar industry.
It's incredible, and I don't know. You probably know this, but it's like if you're driving over the Jefferson Street Bridge, or you're going in and out of downtown late at night. A lot of the times, I mean. There's like a whole production team in that stadium putting all that stuff together for the games, retesting stuff on the screens. And I mean, it's a whole thing. They do it all night.
Yeah.
And you're like, how did you miss this? And you keep showing it all. It's not like this one weird little blooper clip you fucked up and threw up there. It's like every 20 minutes... The Titans, then the Spartans go running. I can't tell you the rage.
What else would they put there, though? That's my thing. Because 300...
If you have billions of dollars, go film some clips of some Titans. Fuck.
But like... We all know 300. Remember when 300 came out and there was a lot of controversy behind it? Everyone thought that 300 was just this basic propaganda ad for the military.
Sure, yeah, I remember there was a lot of... Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if in any other football team, not just the Titans, that they would show 300. Because when you watch that movie, you get pumped. I mean, you get pumped up. You were like, I want to fucking fight in a war.
Yeah.
And then football is just a war without the weapons.
Yeah.
Which basically, did you know the history of football? The history of the football is actually quite interesting. Football started football started during wartime, if I'm not mistaken. And NPR has a great piece about this.
Okay.
Is the history of football and the Native American Indians. And like when they started football, it was a way for young kids who were in war to satiate their need for violence, because young kids, young teenagers,
Sure.
we want to just fight and fuck. That's all we want to do, right?
Sure, yeah. Some adults too.
That's when football was created, and they made teams, and it was usually done by like white college kids. Like that's how football started.
Right.
And then what happened was somehow along the line they made a Native American football team for Native Americans who were assimilated into the society.
The Redskins?
I don't know if they were actually called the Redskins. I'm not sure, which is crazy that there's a football team still called the fucking Redskins. Like, how fucking racist. Anyway, if you really think about it, it's like, what? Anyway, but man, and how we got all the football rules.
I mean, God, for years in baseball, right, you had the Negro Leagues.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
right.
They didn't, I mean, I don't know when they integrated that, but I feel like it was into the 40s, if not into the 40s. Or I think they started, what happened is you had like the Yankees and some of the Dodgers and these major teams were drafting African-American players, and that's sort of how they did that.
Huh. Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
That was a whole ridiculous thing.
What was I saying? Oh, yeah, so like this Native American team just fucking killed every single team. They just went right through them.
Sure.
And I guess it was like the championship game, and they ended up losing based on a technicality that wasn't real or something like that. I can't remember exactly the story. I might be butchering it, but that's how football started, is through that. And then we have the Native Americans to thank for a lot of the rules that we have as far as what's out of bounds and how far you can throw the ball. I can't remember, actually. I forget I said that. But it's a very fascinating story. You should check it out on NPR if you haven't. It's really fucking fascinating, especially if you're into football. Well, we're coming up on our limit here, bro. We've talked for about an hour and a half.
Cool.
Is there anything else do you want to talk about before we got like 15 more minutes?
Let's see. We did the Vegas.
We did conspiracies for a second.
We
there.
did that.
You know, it's funny. Like, I have a friend, Jim. He was on the podcast like not long ago. He's a rapper. He moved to L.A. His band is called Sickwit. It's awesome. Check it out. Anyway, fucking he's into the conspiracy theories, and I have arguments with him on like World Trade Center and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm obviously the person that's like, you're trying to make me believe that like just like a 5 or 7 different people like covered up this entire big thing, the World Trade Center. I'm like, you're giving me a lot on faith here. You're trying to take a lot on faith.
Yeah, it's funny. You'll appreciate this. Conspiracy theory, that's a term that was created and coined by the CIA.
Interesting.
They came up with the concept.
Isn't the true definition of conspiracy if it's several people? I can't remember. Never mind. There's a particular definition of conspiracy theory,
right?
And it's something to do with a crime.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me the difference between, sure, I believe in conspiracy theories. Sure, I believe there are a lot of things that are not what they seem. At the same time, though, regardless of what is the situation, you have to always ask yourself, what's the motivation?
Right.
And that's where a lot of the conspiracy stuff falls apart, because it's like you're putting a lot of basis on the fact that a group of people care enough about a certain thing to do a certain thing.
Right.
And
to do it and cover it up completely without anybody really saying, this is the smoking gun. They did it, and it was complete evidence that they did in fact do it.
But at the same time, it does stand to reason that we have some really interesting organizations in this country.
Oh yeah,
who do interesting things, and as the years go by, things come out, and all of a sudden you go like, for example, and this will be really interesting to see what Trump does with this. I'm really fascinated about it. Whatever the limit on documents is up in like the next couple weeks on all of the JFK stuff, and Trump has the option to release all of it or say, nope, we're not going to do that. And it'll be interesting to see what he does, because it's like the 50-year limit or something, 60 years, like where like all this stuff, enough time has gone by where they let it out.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's like even with the Kennedy assassination, it's very plausible that the CIA did that. Kennedy was actively, he was
trying to dismantle the CIA.
He was 100% committed to getting rid of it in its entirety.
Yeah.
But think about it. The guy's messing around with the mob, and he's threatening the CIA, and that makes sense. And we just I don't know. I think there's a lot of weird things, but at the same time, you have to figure out, what's the motive? There's always a motive. There's always.
Well, and when you get mixed up, a lot of conspiracy theories get mixed up with governments taking advantage of horrible situations.
Right, absolutely.
For example, a lot of people say, well, the World Trade Center happened because we wanted to go into Iraq, ultimately. And you could say that. Yeah, you could say that there was a conspiracy, the government plotted, and World Trade Center happened, and we went into Iraq. Those things make sense. What also makes sense is crazy fundamentalists did the thing, and then the government takes advantage of that situation and go, we can use this to finally go into Iraq,
right.
Which is more plausible.
Yeah, in hindsight, now that we're several years away from it, I don't really view George Bush and the way that I think a lot. I don't really think he's an evil genius,
Yeah.
At all. I guess my whole thing is that, a lot of people are going to say, okay, World Trade Center, that was an inside job, and it's about the New World Order and doing this and doing that. And the reality of that stuff is that you didn't start hearing the term New World Order until we were kind of trying to clean up the universe after World War II.
Yeah.
And you have to figure that if you're a bunch of nations looking at Europe, right, and going, holy fuck, that just happened, and you're sitting there having a meeting with Winston Churchill, who's like, yeah, our country's in ruins. It's pretty plausible that maybe the remaining powers might sit down and talk a little bit about how we were going to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And what is the most logical way to do that? Right? Quit being an isolationist nation, which we very much were before World War II. Mm-hmm. FDR was criticized really badly for being isolationist,
right.
for staying well out of, Japan and Europe and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And people forget that, it's like we were thought of this very warmongering nation, but it's like FDR, man, waited till the last half second to jump into World War II. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Things had been messed up for a long time over there before we decided to get involved. So I think that, it's hard to say. It's like,
and we ultimately profited off of that.
Yeah, we
became the fucking powerhouse right after World War II, because
absolutely
during World War I and World War II, we were kind of just a country. We were kind of just like having our own thing and just be like, hey, we're cool. We're over here.
We were a very rural country. You know, I mean, people forget, you know, it wasn't until, you know, right, the great hero of World War II, Dwight Eisenhower, right, 5-star general, when he was, and there's another important thing in that too, is, you know, there's a lot of division in this country. There's a lot of division politically, racially. You know, we have a lot of issues.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that not too long ago, and when I mean not too long ago, I mean when Eisenhower ran for the presidency, he was nominated by both Republican and Democratic parties, and he chose to run as a Republican. And most of the nation voted for him hands down. And then he, you know, created the Eisenhower freeway system, which you see those signs all over the place. Mm-hmm. That was the beginning of basically us transferring from a very rural agricultural nation to being more city, I guess, more city dominant, more urban.
I think let's end on a good note here. I think it's again, it's easy to say that we're all divided and we're like, fucking Trump is terrible, obviously. But I think the good thing to come out of a situation like this, where we look at, you turn on the news and see Trump speak, and you're like, that's our fucking president. That's right. Super weird. What the hell happened? I think hopefully the nation, God willing, the nation will come together and be like, look, I don't agree with you on everything, but we both agree that that's not what we're supposed to have, right? So can we just coalesce and be like, okay,
it's the same. It's the one thing I've been saying for so long, and that is that you got to reach across the aisle. You have, you know, moderation in all things. And one of the beautiful things about a time like this, though, is people like you are just going, hey, I'm a smart guy. I know some smart guys. Let's get together and talk about some stuff.
Yeah.
And that's important. You know what I mean? It's important for intelligent people to get together and be willing to not agree, but discuss stuff.
Right.
And that's, you know, as a country, I think we can get back to that. And in a way, we're slowly working towards that.
And
it's happening.
And I think we're slowly working towards it with long form podcasts. I mean, Joe Rogan talks about that all the time, is that he, you know, the having a long 3-hour long conversation with somebody that he doesn't necessarily agree with everybody,
right?
But he's having a conversation. It's very civil. He brings up questions that he's honestly trying to figure out their side of something, and he's like, okay, I can see your point, but what if this happened? And what, you know, and just listening to two really intelligent people talk, it brings out your own opinions. Be like, I totally agree with that. Oh, right. I can see another person's point of view. Like, for example, and please don't hate me liberals, please don't hate me for saying this, but Ben Shapiro is super hardcore conservative.
He's a cool dude, though.
But he is an extremely intelligent person, and people label him as racist because he brings up controversial subjects and he talks about science and facts and these sort of things. I
have a good buddy that got me into him, and again,
he talks about uncomfortable subjects.
100% middle of the road, and I just think that. And it's an influence thing too. You know, I think more people need to see people with different opinions engaging in a positive way. It needs to be a thing that culturally, you know, you're influenced by. You know what I mean? Like the way maybe somebody speaks about their parents. It's like, well, my mom and dad have vastly different opinions, man, but they come together and they do this.
Yeah.
And we need to see more of that, like a fuck ton more of that.
Yeah.
On TV, in magazines,
Dude,
and in everyday life.
You just said, man, and this is going to sound really weird and crazy and stupid, but you don't watch TV, obviously, but there is this show called This Is Us, and it's about a white family who was supposed to have triplets, and one of the triplets had died.
Right.
And in that same day, they adopt a young black infant. Right. In the same day, that was brought to the hospital that same day by a firefighter, and the white family's like, that's our son. And it goes, and it's such a brilliantly written show about, and it doesn't just touch on race. It's very funny. It talks about just family. And I watched that show and I'm like, this is what America is.
Right.
This is what America is supposed to be, is like two different, I guess, cultures, like melting together in this beautiful family. It's like, it's fucking beautiful when I watch that show, and it's just like, this is beautiful.
The thing I always say is, it's like, I'm not religious. I'm not necessarily political in the affiliation, but I'm a humanist. I think that covers everything.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a fan of people having a nice time with each other.
Yeah.
That's really important to me. And so anything that can facilitate that, I'm all about.
Right.
And in my experience, the best way to do that is when everyone just chills the fuck out.
Yeah. And not take each other so seriously.
And it's, you know, I have a lot of weird opinions, and everyone has a lot of weird opinions. And you know, it's education through disagreement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Learn something from something you don't understand.
Right. And I think a lot of people fail to do that because they're stuck in their ways and they don't want to listen. They just want to go, I disagree, period. But they don't stop and go, okay, why does this person think this way? Okay, if he thinks that way, you know, how can I learn, if nothing else, to try and, if you disagree with somebody, try to understand where they're coming from so you can break down their argument. And in that process, maybe you learn something. Right, you know, maybe you're like, oh, okay, but that actually makes sense. Or that doesn't make sense because of this. You know, and people stop. People go, no, you're this. No, you're bad. No, that's it. There's stop, period. We got to stop doing that. We got to stop saying that people are just terrible people. We can't just turn people into monsters because that creates a civil fucking war.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, that's right. I mean, it's the whole thing. You can't create a monster to destroy a monster. And,
right.
And we, you know, history shows us that we more often than not do that. And, you know, sure, history repeats itself. And a lot of people get very cynical and go, well, it's just the dismal tide that's always going to repeat this and that. And one way or another, we'll get back to the absurdity. And that's not sustainable.
No.
You know?
It's not.
It's not. That regardless of what happens, being divided isn't a sustainable thing. And
yeah.
And it's not a sustainable thing when you have people, you know, talking about, you know, the inevitability of a race war, or just crazy shit people are running their mouths about.
Yeah.
You're like, that's not sustainable.
No.
I don't care what your opinion is. Don't throw stuff out into the universe that's going to destroy other stuff.
Right. Like I said before, we as a human race learned very long ago that we're like, you know what? We actually survive longer if we all get the fuck along.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's do that. We might not agree on everything. You guys might have different crops that we need, but we trade these crops for these crops. So you know what? We have this mutual relationship going.
Yeah,
and
man,
I
be
kinda
nice to the guy that grows corn really well and toss him a cow every now and then. I mean, you know, it doesn't matter what you think necessarily. Grilled corn and steak is delicious.
It's true.
I
that
mean,
is true.
And just like getting back to weird, you know, I'm an argumentative, disagreeable person a lot of the time, but I've never met a single person that I wasn't able to have a cold beer with. At the end of it, we weren't, you know, like minds in some way.
Yeah.
There wasn't some sort of, you know, kinship that had developed. And there's a lot of conservatives out there. They're really fascinating, interesting people that have great perspectives on stuff. And the same thing with very liberal people, you know, and I don't know where this other shit came from, but I don't believe that it's the destiny of the American people. And I don't believe that it's the average American person that is perpetuating or interested in that.
It's the loudest among us who just scream. They just scream their point of view and they don't listen to anyone else's point of view. Those are sadly the people that just run over all of you people like you and me. They're kind of like, what? No, what? I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. Why? But no, it must be this way.
Well, right. And it's even like, I know we got to go, but even down to like basic human behavior, you just look at people and you go, I don't care what your opinion is. You're being mean. Like, stop being mean. I mean, it's so true. You listen to somebody, you're like, I don't care whether you're right or wrong. That was mean. That's not a nice thing to do.
Right.
You completely alienate whatever your point was, because now you've just fallen face first into assholeness. It's like, oh, cool.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether I agree with you. You're still a dick.
Right.
Being a dick for no reason.
It's like that. It's like the whole revenge thing. It's like, yeah, you may have taken revenge on the person that it might have been justified. Let's break it down into like Kill Bill.
Yeah.
You know, so the rumor is that Kill Bill 3 is going to come out. It's going to be based on the little girl who, what's her name? The blonde who stars in Kill Bill. God, I can't remember. Uma Thurman. Uma Thurman kills the first lady, and the daughter witnesses it. And so the rumor is that Kill Bill 3, it's going to be based on that daughter seeking revenge on Uma Thurman.
Right.
So my whole point being is like, yeah, you may have taken revenge and that was justified, but like now you've started.
She snatches her good eye, right?
No, that's different. That's the third girl that she kills.
Okay.
The first girl was, I can't remember her name, but it's been so long since I've watched that movie. But what I'm saying is like, yeah, that revenge was totally justified, but now you've started a circle where you've killed that girl's mother. And so now she has to take revenge on you, and there we go. And then she's going to kill you, and then if you have a daughter, that daughter's going to take revenge on her, and it's just going to go back and forth, and that's the whole idea of war, right? So at some point, someone's got to go, no, I'm just going to live my life. I can't let this take over
the other
me.
Thing too, you know, we know for a fact through archaeology and historical evidence that there are multitudes of civilization on this earth that they quite literally, you know, whether through war or cannibalism or, you know, killed each other into extinction, you know, or brought their numbers down so low to where, you know, the interbreeding was of such an intense level that finally as a culture, you know, they died out. A lot of, you know, remote islands and things like that. And, I mean, it's a thing. It's a thing. If you don't put a limit on it, it gets out of control really quick.
Yep.
So
sure does. All right, man. I gotta get going. I gotta make dinner, and then I gotta go do some other stuff. So
yeah, me too,
dude. Thanks for coming to hang out and talk with me on the podcast, man. This is awesome.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad we made it happen.
Yeah. You have any plugs? Twitter, Facebook, anything? Your band? What's going on? Let's plug away.
Yeah. The only I'm not a big plug guy, but if you're in Nashville and you are a jazz fan, just pay attention to the Christian Hayden group on Facebook.
There you go.
I got a lot of stuff that'll start kind of ramping up and starting in November, and then kind of as we move into the new year. So just, you know, hop on and like that, and pay attention to, you know, Rudy's Jazz Cave is the one jazz venue in town that just recently opened up in May. So go down there, and there's some great stuff happening. Obviously, there's a Jazz Nashville Facebook group, and you know, if you're into it, there's stuff going on, and fortunately, you don't have to really dig for it as much as you have in years past. It's much more on the periphery. Things are starting to show up in the Nashville scene and what have you.
Right on, man.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with all that. Thanks for coming. High five.
Yes, sir.
Woo, we did it.
Yes, we did.